Hello everyone, this is Leo from the Monkeys Making Noise Place channel, and today we are going to be doing another episode of the Quick Intro to series. And today we will be doing the great lyrical glitter deck that is known as Michu. Michu, or better known as First to Head Towards a Dream Michu, is a grade 3 from the Lyrical Monasterio Nation that has two abilities. A act that says on Vanguard, once per turn, if you have all set up in your order zone, you can counterblast one, draw a card, then choose a card from your hand and call it to rear or discard it. Allowing you to constantly draw cards and superior call is pretty good. All for a CB is a very, very, very strong effect. Then her second ability is Cannonball. Auto. Vanguard Circle. When this unit attacks, you can Soul Blast 2, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, retire it, and it gets +5 until the end of battle. If that were the extent of Michu, I would say that she's probably a very, very low power deck, couldn't do much, but thankfully, the effects of her aren't just what's on her card specifically, right? The extent of her abilities isn't limited to this. So we are going to start with the Cannonball order known as Flower Cannonball. This is a grade 3 set order that you can play with Counterblast 1. When it's put into your order zone, you draw a card, and then while in the order zone, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Michu in its card name, you may put this card into your drop and choose all of your Vanguard's Cannonball abilities and change them to, when this unit attacks, Soul Blast 2, choose 3 of your units, and they get plus 10k until end of turn. So you are able to change the Cannonball abilities, which is incredible. Being able to give 3 units plus 10k means that you get an overall 10k power boost, or 30k power boost, excuse me. So you essentially gain a Persona ride. However, there is a very, very good reason that this Cannonball can give plus 10k to 3 units and doesn't just say plus 10k to the front row. And that is because of Michu's support unit in Shy Vocal Noquo, which is a grade 1, with a very similar effect to Maple from the Keter deck that we just did yesterday. In drop, when a card is put into your order zone, if you do not have a card with Noquo in its card name, you can Soul Blast 1 and call it to your back row center rear guard. That's the generic ability. Some other lyrical decks could use this if they really needed to recur units, but the reason that we play it in Michu specifically, obviously it's built for Michu, but the ability that is tied to Michu is back row center rear. At the end of battle, your Vanguard attacked. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you can Counterblast 1, discard a card, stand this unit, and swap positions with your Vanguard. And at the end of turn, they swap back. This effect might be a little confusing, especially if you're starting out. You might be wondering, what does that mean? How do they swap? Does the Vanguard circle move to the back and the rearguard circle moves to the front, so I just get an extra rearguard swing? No. What happens is you would get the grade 3 card that is currently on your Vanguard circle, you would put it where Noquo is, and then you would put Noquo on your Vanguard circle, which means that Noquo can attack and perform a single drive check. That's why they require a discard, because you get that card back. So, Michu is a 4-attack deck by default, very understandably so, but you can't do it if you're going first, because your opponent will not be at grade 3, which is unfortunate, but hey, you still get a bunch of power with the Flower Cannonball. Then the last card that we're going to talk about here for Michu's first wave of support, at least her key pieces, is All Set Up, which is an order that we saw referenced in the grade 3 Michu that says, Order Zone, if you have Vanguard with Michu in its card name, you can rest it, Soul Charge 1, choose up to 1 Cannonball card from your hand and put it into your order zone. This allows you to get around paying that CB cost that Flower Cannonball is asking of you by simply going, hey, I get to just put this in order zone and I build some soul and I draw a card, which means that technically you don't lose out on a card from hand, you just filter it. Some other cards that were printed in the first printing or the first release of Michu are things like, gonna be difficult to say this, but Ronovea, which is a grade 2 that says on rear and guardian, if you have all set up in your order zone, this unit gets plus 5k shield and 5k power. So being a 13k grade 2 and a 10k interceptor, very good. Just simple power, not really requiring much. All set up is given to you by your ride line, so you don't have to worry about digging for it. Then, another card we got in the same set was Ilse, that is a grade 1 8k that says when the attack this unit boosted hits a Vanguard, if your order zone has all set up, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 glitter unit or order card from among them, reveal it, put it into your hand, shuffle your deck, and if you reveal the card, you put this unit on the bottom of your deck. So it gets itself off board. Then we had Remori, which is a grade 2 that says when this unit attacks a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, if your order zone has all set up, it gets +5. And then when this unit attack hits, you can Soul Blast once you choose a Cannonball card from your drop and put it into your order zone. This makes it so discarding Cannonballs early, if you have too many of them, not as bad, because Remori can just put them back and you still get to draw a card because Flower Cannonball doesn't care where it's put from for that draw. The last card that was printed in the first wave of Michu support that is directly tied to Michu and isn't generic is a Brighter Than the Sun Vini. A grade 3. This card you will not see in most Michu lists, but it is a card that is directly supporting her, so I decided to mention it. It says when this unit attacks a Vanguard, if you have all set up in your order zone, this unit gets +5 until the battle. Then put a set order from drop on the bottom of your deck, and it gets another 5. So a 23k attacker, but it's grade 3, and you don't really want to cycle the set orders back into deck. You'd rather just put them back in an order zone with things like Remori. So, unfortunately, she doesn't see much play. Following the first wave of support for Michu, we've gotten 2 other cards in a promo order that's named Light That Shines on Solitude, that is a grade 1 normal order that says play this if you have Vanguard with Michu in its card name. Perform either of the effects below. You search your deck for up to 1 unit card with Noko in its card name, discard it, and then you shuffle your deck. Or if you have a back row center rear guard with Noko in its card name, you can countercharge one. This card is okay. Personally, I don't play it in my list because you already have a lot of Not Shield in your deck with the 4 Flower Cannonball and the 1 all set up that you'll usually play. So adding more to that isn't going to be great. But the countercharge can be useful sometimes, and you can thin the deck of Nokos. But personally, I don't think this is the greatest card. I don't think that this is something that Michu needed, but it is a card nonetheless, so I had to mention it. Then we have the latest card that directly supports Michu in Kore, which is when this unit is placed on rear by the ability of your Vanguard with Lilfa or Michu in its card name, you can Soul Blast 2, countercharge 1, and it gets +5. Again, another card that soul charges or that countercharges. I don't know how important that is to the deck, but I know that it is a card that references Michu, so I have to mention it. This deck is when I first picked it up back when it originally released, I thought it was a very strong deck, and I was very excited to see what they would do with it. But so far, this deck has been very lackluster in my opinion. Not that it isn't fun. I do think the deck is very fun, and you do draw a lot of cards, but it just feels like it has not been able to keep up with even the other glitter decks as far as support goes. Michu not even having a new form means that all we have right now is the original, and the original is not great. I do believe we have received another promo, and I do believe we're also receiving support in the next lyrical set, but that won't be available until I believe January or February, if I'm not mistaken. So I will not be talking about those cards now because this is just a quick intro. You're just looking at the basics pretty much. Now let's talk about some other support units that, or not support units, but units you'll most likely see in a lot of your Michu decks, a lot of your deck profiles, just so you can get acquainted with them and know what you're looking at. Starting, we'll go from grade 2s and go down. We have Meredith that is a grade 2 10k that says when this unit attack hits a Vanguard, you can look at top 7, choose up to 1 order card from among them, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Allows you to search for Flower Cannonballs and hopefully have them ready to constantly be putting them in order zone with all set up. But a very good card, doesn't cost anything soul or CB wise, so very good. Then the next one is Valshablon, which is the Cycler for Lyrical. Again, very normal effect. When she's discarded, you Soul Blast 1, put her on the bottom, draw a card, and then when you Persona Ride, you can Counterblast 1, choose one of your Vanguards, and it gets all of your front row units gets +5k until end of turn, which is pretty good because you'll end up gaining an extra 5k, so your front row will gain 15k, and then on Persona Ride turns, it'll gain 25k. Personally, I don't know how good this card will be in the deck, but I do know that people do play it, so I have to talk about it. Then we have Elmer, which is another grade 2 that says when the unit is put on Guardian Circle, you can Soul Blast 1 and it gets an extra 5k shield for every card in your order zone. Usually you will have at least 2 or 3, so if for a Soul Blast, she becomes a 20k shield, which isn't awful. But again, with things like Runavea being free, and she's just a 10k shield pretty much right away for no cost, hard to argue for Elmer's defense, but it's still a card you have to keep in mind. Then we have Virginia. that says at the end of battle this unit attacked while boosted. If you played an order this turn, you put it into soul and countercharge 1. Again, don't really know how important countercharging is for this deck specifically, but it creates soul and it countercharges. This deck plays orders, so it is a card that you might see in some decks that maybe go a little more CB heavy or soul heavy as a way to recur resources. Then the last of the grade 2s is Unity, which is a card I personally do like in the deck a lot, although it does eat CB, but you can very easily manage your deck to not get choked out on CP. But her effect is very simple. She says when it's placed on rear from hand, you can counterblast 1, choose a card from your order zone, and put it into your hand. This allows you to put the Flower Cannonball back into your hand, and then you can use things like All Set Up to put it back in an order zone for free to draw a card. Essentially, you will now have gained a card for free instead of having to waste a Cannonball to get a card. Very good card in my opinion. You get to play the Flower Cannonballs. You can keep juggling them without having to hit more than the one. Lets you draw a bunch of cards if you're not using too much CB, or I mean, you've seen there are 3 choices for countercharging in this deck already. You shouldn't have a hard time with it. Then onto the next grade, onto the grade 1s, we have 2 choices here. The first one being Yuka, which you've probably seen in most lyrical decks. Hard to miss. She's very, very, very well known. Very simple effect. Once per turn, when your other unit in the same column as this unit is placed, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3, it gets plus 5k. 13k booster, pretty good. Then her second effect says at the end of the battle, this unit boosted a rearguard. You can Soul Blast 1, choose one of the boosted rearguards, and return it to hand. Allowing you to protect your important units for later turns is incredible, as well as being a 13k booster, which means on a 10k attacker, that's 23. Right. If you were to create a column with Remory and Yuka, that would be a 28k column, which is perfect, which would cost a trigger to guard. So a very good card there. She, I believe, isn't as expensive as she used to be before, but it's a good card. What can I say? You know. Then the last card we will be talking about here is Aura. That she says, when the attack this unit boosted hit, retire this unit, search your deck for up to 1 order card, and put it into your hand, shuffle your deck. Very similar to Meredith in the ability to search for order cards, but instead of having to just randomly hope you find it in top 7, she'll just go get it for you. Although Aura is a 6k, so numbers will be a little wonky, but if you can get her out on early on, maybe turn 1 or as soon as you can attack, put her behind Ven and you'll have that on-hit pressure, making your opponent more likely to guard and waste cards from hand. Michu thrives on making your opponent waste cards because her numbers can get insane, and that's what you want. You want your opponent to have to use multiple cards to guard you, and if you're depleting their resources while keeping a hefty amount of your resources, that'll be perfect. But to wrap this up, I personally love Michu. She's a very, very cool deck. I do believe Bushiroad has let her down a little bit. I do believe she's received a promo Cannonball, but it wasn't the greatest thing, unfortunately. But it is more support, so they've clearly not forgotten about her. We know she's getting support in the new lyrical set, so that's good. And let's see how her support goes moving forward. But with that, I'll leave you guys. Thank you for watching.